Hello, everyone. My name is Chris Riley. I'm the Public Engagement Information Manager for the Victor Valley Union High School District, and it is my pleasure to welcome you to our latest live town hall here for the Victor Valley Union High School District. So we're going to talk about a few different topics today, but mostly we're going to be talking about the Office for Civil Rights report regarding our district. We'll get more into that in a little bit, but before we do that, I'm going to introduce our panelists here, and I'm going to start off with Elvin Momon. And Elvin Momon has been with us the past few sessions, so you know him as our superintendent. But as you can see, he has somebody else with him. And so I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Momon. I'll let you do the honors here.
Thanks, Chris. Yes, I would definitely like to introduce our new superintendent, Carl Coles. He's by way of Benita Unified School District. He brings a new vision to our district, new fresh ideas, and I think he's going to be a great leader for the Victor Valley Union High School District.
Thank you, Elvin. I really appreciate the opportunity to serve the community and look forward to learning and growing alongside everybody. So thank you for that introduction.
Okay, thank you. And so both of these gentlemen had to rush from across town because we had a situation over at Lakeview where our district leadership was speaking to the staff, and also our Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, Dr. Ramona Yee, was also over at Lakeview. So she's a little bit late in joining us. So when she is able to come in, we'll introduce her as well. So let's move on to the rest of the people that are with us right now. Let's introduce our Director of Student Services, Mr. Michael Williford. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Chris. Again, welcome, Mr. Coles. We appreciate you being here, of course, and we look forward to having you in the district. And, of course, Mr. Momon, thanks always for your support. Families, we look forward to working with you today and catching up on some good information. So thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Okay. And as per usual, we do offer translation in these meetings for folks who would like to ask questions in Spanish. So I would like to say buenas tardes to a couple of special guests we have here. So we'll start off with Mr. Jonas Cabrera.
Thank you, Chris, and pleasure to be here. Muchísimo gusto a todos los que están aquí con nosotros. Soy Jonás Cabrera, soy el traductor e intérprete del Distrito Escolar y estoy aquí para poder ayudar en lo que necesiten durante esta transmisión.
Okay, and tenemos otra traductora. Did I say that right? Okay, so we would like to introduce Mari Mercado. And she is a new translator with the district. So she's going to be working with Jonas. And so we're very happy to have her on board. So she's joining us for this meeting. And she's just going to kind of hang out and watch Jonas and just be here for support. So Mari, if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yes, good afternoon. Welcome, everyone. I am Mari Mercado, interpreter translator for the school district. It is truly an honor to be with you here today. Buenas tardes, bienvenidos a todos. Soy Mari Mercado, intérprete traductora del Distrito Escolar. Es realmente un honor estar aquí con ustedes en esta noche.
Great, thank you very much. So I don't see Dr. Yee yet. I might try to find her while Mr. Williford is presenting some things for us. So Mr. Williford is going to talk a little bit about the findings of the Office for Civil Rights, which is part of the U.S. Department of Education. Now, as I said, you can go to our website, that's VVUHSD.org, and under District News, you'll see an item there that links to a press release from the OCR that has a letter that they sent to us as well as an agreement that we entered into with them. But to explain in a little more detail what this is and what it pertains to, I'm going to have Mike go ahead and start a presentation. So pop that up on the screen and Mike, take it away. Oh, I think you're muted. There we go. Yeah.
Again, thank you, families, for being here. And again, please feel free to ask questions and there'll be a kind of a suggestion question piece at the very end. But again, as we go through the slides, please feel free to ask questions. Again, we do have translators here, of course, to help, translate if any questions need to come across. We want to be transparent and help support everyone as we move through this process. So our first slide here is kind of what you're going to take away from today is what is OCR and what are the findings? The Behavior Intervention Discipline Matrix team, the committee, the outcomes, the team, the new matrix that we put in place for this school year and those tiers of intervention. Behavior intervention and the discipline matrix itself in regards to the purpose behind it, those policies and procedures, levels of intervention and definitions of those things, our tiered intervention of supports. Also, too, again, our commitments that we're going to be making as a district, of course, to our community, families, and school sites and students. And we're going to wrap it up today with a couple of different things regarding, parent input, how you can be involved through our district committees and other ways to be involved. And again, a question, suggestion, concern section at the very end. So again, your feedback is very important to us, and we want to make sure that you are always there to support us. So again, your feedback. Thank you very much. Someone's not muted out there. Thank you. So this is a kind of the summary of those OCR findings. As Chris had mentioned, it's on our main webpage. So the OCR did actually an investigation. So I want you to kind of give some time frame here as well. This investigation actually started back in 2014. So that's when this OCR civil rights complaint came across the desk. And then from there, they started doing, interviews from 2014 to 2019. They did interviews. They requested data samples. They requested, other information from the district. And we submitted all those things, with our time frames. And then they finally came to their conclusion during that 2021-2022 school year at the very end of it. And with that, this was their compliance review and what they've uncovered per that OCR compliance review. So basically, based on the above analysis of both direct and circumstantial evidence of racial discriminatory intent, Office of Civil Rights, that's what OCR stands for, determined under Section 30B of OCR's Case Processing Manual that the district student discipline practices violated Title VI and implementing regulations and these are all ed codes here and education codes. You can look those up. In addition to direct evidence of statements from district administrators and employees reflecting racial discriminatory motives, OCR reviewed circumstantial evidence that based on the totality of the circumstances, evidence of racial discrimination in student discipline. This included examples of racially different treatment of similarly situated students, statistical evidence demonstrating a consistent and stark pattern of racial discriminatory effect on African American students, several noticeable departures from normal district procedures, and inconsistent application of discipline policies, and a pattern of actions that has imposed greater harm on African American students than students of other races. So that was the summary of the entire, 39 and 46 page summaries of results and resolutions. But again, it just comes down to, this data, that was received from 2014 to 2019. So again, I want to make sure that the time frame is also relevant there as far as when this actually was happening. So moving forward, and this is the great thing since last year, though, before this even kind of came out, we've already actually started making changes to our process before we even knew the outcomes, because we knew that we do need to make some changes. We need to be better. We need to do better supports for all of our students. So with that, we actually created a discipline matrix task force. We met in April to May and re-looked at all of our trends and laws. We looked at our data review, looked at all of our suspension data. We looked at our discipline practices and did a problem of practice on why we're doing what we're doing and how outcomes are becoming and what they are. We changed our systems approach. We implemented new interventions for the 2022-23 school year. And then, of course, we rolled that out after that to all of our school sites to start getting them trained on these new practices. And on the other side of this slide here, again, we looked at our attendance and MTSS, which is for PBS, our matrix task force. And again, they looked at, the same data. And we looked at our targeted attendance and planning systems for PBS. We looked at our new systems. We implemented more interventions for 22-23. And then, of course, we rolled those out as well. These are kind of some examples of some of that work that those two teams did. You can kind of see the front page there of our discipline matrix team. Again, it's at all the school sites and those interventions that were put in place. We created a new referral form, a behavior referral form, so that way we can actually track the data effectively to make sure we're identifying what the problem need is for each student and give them the intervention they need. And then if you look to the right of that, there's two pyramids there. Those are our two new pyramids that we created for our MTSS for both behavior and attendance. Again, helping identify supports to really help students be successful right away instead of waiting until those ultimate outcomes at the end. So that team itself was made up of different individuals across the district. We had certificated staff, classified staff, administrators, families were involved. We had parents involved in both of these teams as well as law enforcement, to make sure, again, we had a well-rounded team to make sure that, again, that we're addressing all the needs from all stakeholders. And we're going to be meeting again here. I'll be talking about a little bit later, but we're going to be meeting again. Also, these teams will meet again in October for review. And we're going to be inviting students onto those teams now, too, to get, again, the student component to make sure, again, we're addressing all the needs from all stakeholders. This here is the short summary of, again, why we created that behavior intervention matrix component. So again, the purpose of the Victor Valley Union High School District's Behavior Intervention Discipline Matrix is to assist site administrators in the consistent application of administrative actions and provision to student interventions district-wide. The VVUHSD established a Behavior Intervention Matrix for administrators to use a guide for their decisions at the beginning of the 2013. So again, this goes back to 2013 is when this started, but we updated it again to meet the needs of our current situation. So moving forward, making sure that we adopted school-wide positive behavior interventions and supports for PBAS as research evidence-based multi-tiered system supports MTSS to restructure disciplinary actions to address district disproportionality data. The behavior intervention discipline matrix integrates MTSS strategies and interventions into the progressive discipline continuum to facilitate and incorporate for interventions and restorative practices as opposed to punitive practices while utilizing data-based decision-making. And responsibility for all educational partners, students, certificated classified staff, and families are critical to the successful implementation of interventions and consequences. Student and staff and families must be accountable for the document implement procedures at the levels depicted below. So again, we wanted to make sure that this was out there. And again, we wrote some of these pieces too, because intervention is so key to helping, curb discipline and keeping kids in school, because we want all kids to be successful. This here is just kind of a brief short piece of those pieces, so you're kind of aware of it. We kind of have a 5-level continuum. This is our starting point, our foundation point. And again, we're going to look at, of course, revamping this as needed. So level 1 issues are things that are handled in the classroom. So that means the teacher handles it. It doesn't mean the student's going to be, sent to the office. The teacher might do some items, changing seats, call homes, teacher managed situations. Level 2 things, or there may be a referral sent to the office for behavior, where now the administrations might then decide what that best intervention could be. Level 3 is again going to be some more discussion, of course, about OCI, which is considered for on-campus intervention. So they might receive some on-campus intervention. But if the consequence is severe enough based on ed code, there could be an outside suspension. But again, we're looking at that data, though, to maybe not always go that route and provide true intervention first before we go to that outside suspension component. Level 4 stuff could be, again, going to more outside school suspension, depending on the behavior and on the ed code violation. And hopefully we never get to level 5. Level 5 are those things that are required by ed code to be expelled for. And we'll kind of to touch base on those a little bit shortly. Down below, some key definitions is classroom managed, means that the teacher manages those classroom interventions and behaviors. Office discipline referral is a formal write-up of the behavior that is sent to the office. OCI stands for our on-campus intervention. OSS stands for outside of school suspension. Expulsion means removal from the campus or district based on ed code violations between 48900 and 48915. And of course, education code are the laws that govern schools and what they're supposed to be doing with different processes besides discipline. So here's just a quick example of some examples of that tiered intervention we recalibrated and restructured for this upcoming school year. So if you look at these tiered structures here, you'll see responsibilities. That's our tier 1 kind of intervention. These are the things that all people should be doing at the school site, from our classified staff to administrators to teachers. So again, establishing those positive relationships, teaching behavioral expectations, doing pre-correction and reflective and redirections. So those are those tier 1 kind of interventions that kind of mirror down from level 1 down to level 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you'll kind of see that. Now the intervention piece, now that next column over, are these interventions we could be applying that are still not punitive. So again, they could be things regarding, for those tier 2 interventions, verbal corrective feedback, a parent conference with a counselor, parent guardian conferences, a referral to mental health clinician. Again, looking at different strategies to help intervene to keep our kids in school and keep them on the right path. And of course, those last consequences, that tier 3, which kind of are more extreme consequences. Again, there could be things regarding removal from classrooms, could be suspensions. But again, the key there is to try not to do those things, to still address those consequences first before we get to those more extreme removal of site consequences. Now, again, there are some ed codes that do require that removal of site consequence. And again, we'll kind of address those maybe if not this meeting, at a future meeting. So again, here's our tier 3 and 4 kind of our process. So again, those tier 1 interventions in tier 3, restrictive environment, opportunity to complete work, opportunity for corrective behavior, and some due process. Intervention pieces, again, revising IAPs, looking at OCI for behavior intervention, mental health condition, and then again, of course, the more extreme behaviors may receive one of those outside consequences at the very end. Same thing with our tier 4 consequences there. Again, that first one, responsibilities, are tier 1. That intervention components are tier 2 intervention. And of course, the consequence thing is our tier 3. Again, but looking at different strategies, again, to not remove students from campus and keep them in their classrooms. And then here, of course, is our tier level 5 intervention, which is the expulsion component. Again, these are based on usually on 48915. That's the ed code, 48915. And those are things that are super extreme and require us to go through the expulsion process. And that's the law. It's not, we can't juggle pieces of it. But again, I want to make people aware of that component. So down below that is actually the ed code, so you're aware of the ed code that exists out there regarding some of these changes we've made. So the first ed code here is to further the intent of the legislation for multi-tiered systems of support, which again goes back to that progressive discipline plan you're seeing in our tiered intervention, which includes restorative justice practices, trauma-informed practices, social and emotional learning, and school-wide positive behavior and interventions and support. Maybe also use to gain critical social emotional skills, receive support to help transform trauma-related responses, and understand the impact of their actions, and develop meaningful methods of repairing harm to the school community. So again, that's something we really took to heart as we started to redevelop these tiers of intervention. And I think the team did a great job as far as establishing some of those protocols and systems. Also down below that, you'll notice again, about attendance components. So again, I'm sorry, not the attendance for K1. So again, there is a ed code called 4900 K, which stands for, disruption and defiance. Again, the state law has changed that if a student has a 4900 K for disruption or defiance, the student should not be put up for expulsion. And in 7th and 8th grade, they cannot be suspended. So we wanted to make sure that those components were added, of course, to our tiered intervention. Our commitment and goals, of course, that we are committing to for this school year, and of course, moving on beyond this year, is the district is going to work yearly with all families to look at our current data and intervention practices. The district's going to continue to work to develop the equity task force to engage community in equity and inclusion, practice our equity statements and our tenets that we've created recently. The district will also engage in a new professional development to look at new intervention and strategies to support all students, looking at things like cultural competencies, implicit bias, outward mindset, and etc. And the district will be meeting monthly with all school sites to review its current discipline practices and trends to help guide in case that we need more support and more instruction there. How do families get involved, which is the key part here? So we have two big pieces that, of course, we would love to have more community members involved in. First is our, First is our district equity task force. The VVUHSD equity task force was developed in 21-22, and the school year to bring awareness to potential inequities that exist based on the data. Taking deep dives into the tenets, discipline, climate, and academic data helped the committee craft our district equity statement and tenets. The task force will convene in September 2022 to continue to develop the district equity action plan. Participants in this task force consist of families, staff, administrators, and community partners. And families and community members can join by emailing Katrina Neal at kneal@vvuhsd.org. And again, it's also here at the top too, kneal@vvuhsd.org, if you're interested in joining that task force. Below that is the task force for the district behavior intervention matrix team. That team will meet quarterly to look at school discipline and discipline data in relationship to the interventions currently in practice. The team will look at root causes of the data, make suggestions on possible corrections, and decide on additional interventions. Families and community members can help join by emailing the person above and add it to the email dates. And again, you can email Christina Smith at ksmith@vvuhsd.org, and we'll gladly add you on to that for our upcoming meeting. It's going to be in October to look at our first quarter data and compare it with our discipline matrix. So with that, other ways that parents can get involved, we would highly recommend, we do have a panorama parent survey that goes out in the fall and the spring. And it talks about, of course, discipline data, school climate. We would love to have more parents to be involved taking that survey. It helps guide us and help correct our actions. Also, too, to join your school sites MTSS and PBS teams. Contact your school sites to be a part of your school teams talking about school culture and climate. And of course, the last one is attend your school's coffee with the principal, English language advisory committee, school site counselor, or any other parent groups available at your school site. Lastly, our last part of I have on here is I'd like to open up the floor for any questions, concerns, suggestions, or if you want anything clarified, please let me know. I know we ran through about 18 minutes worth of information, a lot of information, but we're here to answer those questions. We definitely want to help clarify and be transparent as we move through the process.
And Mike, if I can jump in here, those of you on Facebook shouldn't have had this problem, but those of you who are watching on YouTube, you may have had an issue trying to comment in the live chat because someone, actually one of our district employees, Latanya Myers, texted me and said she was watching on YouTube and wasn't able to comment in the live chat. So I was able to make a little fix on the back end here, and the live chat on YouTube should be working. However, you may have to just reload the video real quick. You may have to reload the page in order to see the live chat, and it'll pop up for you there. Facebook, there shouldn't have been any problem at all. So I'm not seeing any questions so far. So that, I guess that means, Michael, you've just explained everything so terrifically that we don't have any questions yet, but we'll see if any come in. And also, while we're waiting to see if any questions come in, I would like to introduce Dr. Ramoni Yee, and she is our Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services. She was out at Lakeview Leadership Academy. And thank you for joining us, Dr. Yee. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here with us today.
All right. Yes, and thank you for being here. So,
Chris, if you don't mind me jumping in real quick, I know I'm going to put Ramoni on the spot right now, though. But if she would like to maybe even talk a little bit more about the equity task force and the equity tenets and those components. I know that they had that conversation about you maybe doing that a little bit earlier when we were doing the slides. But again, if you maybe want to jump in on that, please, that'd be great.
And before you say that, I just want to say I'm going to thank Philip Banks out there, because he says, yes, reloading the page fixed the chat. So if you're on YouTube and you're trying to comment, you're furiously trying to comment and you can't, reload the page and it will come up and you'll be able to chat in there. So please do that, and we'll wait for your questions. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Dr. Yee.
No, it's thank you, Mike. Yes. Let me talk a little bit about the Equity Task Force. This was born from the idea of just being equity minded and really looking at our data to ensure that we provide an equitable outcome for all of our students. So we developed the Equity Task Force, which consisted of teachers and classified certificated staff, administrators, parents. This year, we're going to be adding students. We also have business partners as well. So just a nice cross-section of our educational partners. And this year, our task really was just to build awareness, to really look at our data, really come up with some data statements of I noticed and I wonder. And then from that, we crafted our equity statement for our district, which we are very proud of, because it becomes kind of a guiding and a focus for our district and how we make decisions. And then we also had an opportunity to create our core values, which we call our equity tenets. So we're just excited about that. And as we kind of look to this year, we're going to start up and reconvene the committee and add additional people. So for any families or community members that would like to be a part of this work, this very, very important work, please reach out to us. Email my secretary, Katrina Neal, and we will definitely get you on that committee. And this year, it really is creating our action plan, really looking at some of the things that we are currently doing and also some things that we hope to accomplish this year and in the out years to really, again, focus on equity and addressing the disparities that we are seeing in our data. So thank you, Mike, for giving me an opportunity to talk a little bit about that.
Okay, thank you. And let me pop on Ms. Mercado again, because we had a nice comment about you here. This is another of our district employees, Christina Smith, and she says, congratulations to Mari Mercado. You are a pleasure to have on our team. So And I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. Okay, so okay, we have now. Let's get to some tougher questions here. This is what we're looking for. Okay, someone says, "Would you mind posting those emails in the chat?" Yes, we can do that. I will do that, and make sure you have those email addresses. Now, Angel Heart 1776 says, "Equity isn't equality; it's equal outcome and not equal chance. Equity is communism." Okay, well, political opinions aside, what would we like to say to that? Because hey, you know what? This is an open discussion, and we can talk about these things. Personally, I don't agree with what you're saying, but let's just take it at face value and maybe try to address that comment. Would anyone like to take this one? I think we're muted here. Mr. Wilford?
Well, I would just say on that component, though, based on Office of Civil Rights, information and their data, that the discipline hasn't been done equitable because they looked at multiple school sites, they looked at history based on, racial profiling, racial demographics. And so, again, they feel that the discipline that we've been administering has not been in an equitable format. So, again, that's where we have to go. We have to make sure that we are doing things equitable across the board for all of our students to making sure they all have the same chance to succeed.
Right. And so talking about equity isn't equality. So I was with you there. I was with you there on that first sentence, because I do agree with that equity and equality are not always the same thing. However, I think there's some kind of a commentary here saying that we shouldn't be doing our best to make sure that we're not disproportionately disciplining certain groups, and that we shouldn't be doing our best to make sure that every student in our district has a chance. And if you don't agree with that sentiment, well, I can't help you. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. So, Miss Mercado is the best. Dr. Hasso speaking. So that's another one of our district employees, Dr. Hasso. And thank you for tuning in. So the emails that we referenced in the PowerPoint, what were the ones that we wanted to get out there? Forgive me for not remembering, Michael.
Yeah, so we want to make sure if you are interested in joining the Equity Task Force, the District Equity Task Force with Dr. Yee, that's going to be kneal@vvuhsd.org. And then if it's going to be for the district behavior intervention team, which is my team, then that's going to be ksmith@vvuhsd.org.
Okay. So I'm posting the first one and now the second one. K. Smith, vvuhsd.org. Okay. And let's see if we've got any more questions coming in. We've got me posting emails. I don't see anything else yet. Now, you're welcome, Bonnie. Thank you for tuning in. Let's see if we've got any more questions. I don't see any more questions yet about this equity piece. I know that folks were having some problems with the YouTube chat. And again, if you haven't already, please reload the page if you're watching on YouTube. The chat should work for you. So I want to give people a couple of minutes just in case they had any questions or comments about the equity piece. And if not, we will open it up for these last few minutes to some other general questions you may have about school. Where can I find the disciplinary matrix on your website? That's a good question. Is it up there yet?
It's not up on the website yet. We're just waiting for OCR to go ahead and do the final approval on it, and then we can get it out there for public.
Okay. So yeah, sometimes these things have to go through certain channels and be approved. But
if Bonnie would like to, if she can, though, if she wanted to, she can come to either her school site, her kid's school site, or come to the district office, though, and she can meet with us, and I can show her the discipline matrix as it is right now, kind of in an embargoed version, so she can at least go through it and we can talk about it. So, and then she can definitely come to my office and we can work with her on that.
Okay. All right. Well, let's see what else we got here. Nothing coming in. Like I said, Michael, I guess you just explained everything so thoroughly. I'm not seeing anything just yet here. I would like to also say, just kind of as an aside, that myself and almost everybody on the screen here were out at the kickoff for the Heritage Program out at Adelanto High School, which is a really interesting. Interesting is not the word. I think it's a really positive program for our African American youth, just people of color in general in our district, and they shared a lot of great things at that meeting, just about tips for parents, tips for students, and it's a program that supports these parents and students all year long. So would anyone like to talk a little bit more about the Heritage Program? Maybe Dr. Yee?
Absolutely. I'm very happy to talk about that. One of the ways in which we address kind of some of the support that we're seeing within our data and looking at some of the disproportionality when it comes to African American students and graduation rates and also A through G rates is really to provide very strategic and targeted approach to that. So the Heritage Program is born from that need. So what it is a program for 10th through 12th grade African American students. Currently, we're piloting it at one site, Adelanto High School, and we have about 320 plus students who are part of it. And we review every single transcript of our students and really put them in the different levels that we call level 1s through 4, from students who are absolutely on track to graduate and be A through G ready, and also students who are on the opposite end as well, who need a lot more support. So it provides a teacher who's been released for 3 periods to really be that mentor, that support. And, whether we equip students with whatever resources that they need, tutoring, if they need a mentor, if they need supplies, whatever it is that's kind of gets in the way for them from being successful. So Heritage really is a focused program. We're looking at some college tours, we're looking at trips, and just giving students that opportunity to be successful and be able to go to a 4-year college after they graduate. So we're very proud, and we're just starting. So we're really looking forward to see how it all kind of unfolds this year. So.
Okay, thank you very much. Just Me says, I apologize if you already answered. How is inequality being addressed at each site? Mr. Wilford?
Yep. So with that, what we're currently working on, like I said, we look at all the data. And as we look at the data, we then sit down with the school sites to look at how that data is being used. We look at the strategies and intervention components that are in place, as well as we're also looking at different interventions we're bringing in, like the Heritage Program we're bringing in to help support Adelanto. We have young visionaries that you're working in to bring with some of our other school sites. We have another program we're working called Give Back. We're bringing that in as well to help our foster and homeless youth. So again, we're looking at multiple resources that come in and help support, to help support those inequalities if we do find them at each school site. So those are some of the small pieces we're doing right away to start off with. And as we get more deeper into the data and we look at our most current data again, because again, that's where it's tricky, because the data it's used for this OCR complaint was from 2014, 2019. So we need more current data to see how our current practices are being implemented. And so we can start working on if there are inequalities right now in any school site. So again, it's all data driven with monthly meetings and looking at resources, interventions, and those kind of components. And again, that's why it's so important for our parents to be either involved in our district equity task force or in our behavior intervention task force to see that data and hear those conversations about the inequities and the things we're doing to help rectify some of those pieces out there.
Okay, we have a couple of rather negative comments here, but we're not going to shy away from those. So we have Gen X Juggalo says, I'm confused. So you were targeting Black, Indigenous, people of color students before, but now we're supposed to believe you are going to discontinue that practice now. Why? Because you were caught, and along those same lines, Manuel Bonilla, this just seems like a we are sorry we got slapped in the hand and got away with crimes kind of meeting. There's another comment here that I'm not going to post because I'm not going to post name calling, but But these other two more substantive comments will, I guess, try to address. There's not really an easy answer to those things. I will say that these changes that we are making are changes that have been in the works for some time. And so it's not that we said, oh, we have this OCR report and now we're going to do these things. These have been changes that have been happening over the past few years. So it was already recognized that there were some issues. And certainly, I also want to make it clear that some of the issues that we face in this district are not unique to us. And these are societal issues, and they go far beyond the Victor Valley Union High School District. So I do want to make those points clear. I don't know if anyone else wants to talk a little bit more about some of these things.
May I add just a couple of things?
Sure.
So I think that we are so committed, and thank you for the feedback. And sometimes the feedback may not be as pleasant, but we absolutely recognize that there is a need for some change, and we are all committed. Mr. Momon, Mr. Cole's joining us officially tomorrow, and everyone here on this call, we are committed to doing what's right. And I'm really proud of some of the work that we've started last year, some of the work we will continue to do. So thank you for your grace. Thank you for your patience. It will take time, but we believe we are on the right path. Many a times, some of the positive things that are going on are not the ones. We need to do a better job in really highlighting those. But some of the things that Mr. Williford spoke about, some of the things that we are all working on are really addressing some of the inequities that we are seeing. So again, thank you for your grace. It will take some time, and we're just excited to be part of this journey with you all.
Okay, Just Me says, from the articles, I understand that specific teachers were involved with targeting students. How has that been addressed? Mr. Wilford, is that anything you want to take on?
Well, on that one there, like I said, that's where the data kind of makes it hard to go through, because this is from 2014, 2019. So I can't get into specifics because it's historical teacher data and teachers who, again, I don't know all those individuals, because at that time frame, we don't get kind of the OCR doesn't give us those names. Those things stay confidential, but we can look at data, and those data we would then definitely address at the school sites with those teachers, if they still work for the district too. That's the other thing we don't know. So again, those are key components that we're going to address as we go through the data site by site, looking at those components, and then again making changes at those school sites. And then again, if those changes are made and we still have certain situations, then Office of Civil Rights is there to help support us if there are other changes that need to be made. So again, that's what I can really comment on that for the most part, until we get deeper as we work with Office of Civil Rights on these fixes.
Okay, so, and the support and resource at Heritage is only for African-American students. Well, it is targeted particularly for African-American students. Maybe Dr. Yee can talk a little bit more about that, but yeah, I'll just pass it over to you.
Absolutely. The way that we kind of determine our priority is based on the data. And right now, the data shows that our African-American students, as far as graduation-wise, are actually doing fairly well. It is the A through G that we're struggling with. There's about a 20% gap between our African-American students as compared to other subgroups, such as Hispanic and white and so forth. So this kind of program really is very strategic and targeted to meet those needs. And what we hope to do is actually, and I know my new superintendent is hearing this, is really to expand the Heritage program at other sites as well too. The other area that later on, as we dive a little bit more deeper into our long-term English learners, that is also looking at our data. That is also an area that we really need to support. And I'm excited because the sister of Heritage is actually Legacy. And I'm familiar with that because in my former role, I worked with the Legacy and the Heritage program as well. So I'm excited to kind of have some initial discussion about that. But wherever our data says that we should pay attention to and provide more strategic support, that's exactly what we're going to do. So look for more information on those two programs in the future.
Okay. And Yeah. So one of the things like highlighted in the OCR report is that we have some disproportionate issues that are happening with our African American students. So it would make sense then that we may have some supports that are for those students to try to address these issues. So moving on to Jasmine Avery. What alternative options do you have in place for expecting students to complete physical education in extreme weather conditions? My student ran a mile today in 106-degree weather and did not receive credit because she took too long. She has suffered from heat exhaustion. I've contacted school and nothing has been done. Well, Jasmine, I can't speak specifically to your specific issue. We could speak more broadly about the fact that, especially when there's extreme heat warnings in place, we do not want our students to overexert themselves or to forget to hydrate. There's a lot of general safeguards that we have in place for our students. And with this particular issue, please, it says you've contacted the school. Please make sure you're contacting the right person. I think if you're able to get a hold of the principal's office, you should get a response. Michael, would you like to say any more about that?
Yeah, actually, too, if she can, I'm interested in hearing more about this. If she can actually email, again, Kay Smith, my secretary, I'd love to talk a little bit more about the situation, do some follow-up for her, and find out what was going on at that school site, to get more details. Again, I don't want to comment one way or the other. It serves me to hear if that's what's happening. But again, I want to help this parent out and figure out what was the protocol so we can take care of that for her.
Yeah. Smith at VVUHSD.org. So because we don't know the situation, because we weren't there, we're certainly not going to discount what you're saying. We're going to listen to you and try to figure out what the situation is and how it can be corrected. And certainly we can't just talk off the cuff about a school site situation that we have no firsthand knowledge of. But thank you for letting us know, and please send an email, ksmith@vvuhsd.org.
Mr. Riley, can I add a little bit?
Yes.
So the procedure in our district is when there is a high heat advisory, because the county always puts that out as well too, then we go ahead and let our staff know about it. Emails are sent to sites, and then PE teachers would then make adjustments, whether it is now we're doing indoor, we're in the cafeteria, we're doing a written assignment or something different so that the kids aren't out there in the heat. In that case, again, thank you, Mr. Williford. We will kind of find out what happened. I know recently there was a heat advisory. As a matter of fact, I spoke to a principal today that had to cancel his JV football game and some other sports that were occurring in the middle of the day because of that very reason. So there is a protocol in place that the district follows, hence the site follows as well too. So we'll get to the bottom of it and provide you the support that you need. And thank you for letting us know that.
Okay. Okay, Gen X Juggalo. So will there be compensation for students who have been targeted by staff? Yes. So if we find that individuals have been unable to graduate due to disproportionate discipline, which has been given to them, we will find supports for these students, including tutoring, connecting them with adult education to make sure that they can get a diploma. If you mean compensation monetarily, no, that's not something that I'm aware of. Mr. Wilford, Dr. Yee, would either of you like to say any more about that?
Yeah, so the way it works in the OCR complaint or the resolution component is, again, that we do need to provide compensatory education for any student that may have been harmed by these past practices. So again, we are working with, of course, with Mr. Momon and now with Mr. Coles on looking at what those compensatory education processes will be. Again, it could be transportation components to our adult ed program. It could be tutoring. We have a lot of other processes we're still working through on this. Again, and then of course, any student recently that may have received that, again, we'll be looking at anything that could be from tutoring to other supports to make sure that we catch them up and make sure they're going to graduate on time, because that's our ultimate goal. We want all of our kids to graduate. So, and that again comes from that compensatory education part. So hopefully that answers that question.
Okay, Philip Banks, I think important to stress that you've opened new job positions in the school district this year directly as a result of complaint and legal matter. Prior years did not have such job position. Well, yes and no. we've had this Director of Student Services position for a few years. Prior to Mr. Wilford, we had another individual named Shekenya Edison who was in that position and was doing some of the work in correcting some of these issues that are mentioned in the OCR report. As I said earlier, this is not something where the OCR report came and all of a sudden we want to make changes. There have been positive changes that we've been trying to effect for a few years now. So Mr. Wilford's position existed before this report, and he will be handling a lot of things related to this report. In addition to that, because of the requirements of the OCR report, yes, we are required to bolster some of our hiring in this area to address certain things. And again, I'll hand it over to Dr. Yee or Mr. Wilford if you want to talk in more detail about that. Mike, did you want to say anything about that, or Dr. Yee?
I was waiting to see if Dr. Yu was going to say something. If not, I can jump in.
Chris, can you repeat your question again for me?
Well, this individual, Mr. Banks, was talking about these added positions. So I think he's referring to the fact that we're going to have to hire a director position. What we're doing is we're kind of changing, and my understanding is we're kind of changing Mr. Wilford's position a little bit. We are adding a coordinator of child welfare and attendance. We are adding some consulting positions as well.
Sure.
And so if we can just talk a little bit about that.
So one of the stipulations in the agreement with OCR is for our district to actually hire a director, PBIS, and things like that to really provide the support and the guidance and the leadership needed in this role. We already kind of have that in Mr. Williford, and he's done such an amazing job in just the short time that he's been here. And again, going back to what he mentioned before, some of the stuff that we are doing, we've done even prior to OCR and the agreement. So instead of hiring another director, what we're doing is actually looking at Mr. Williford's job, which encompasses a lot of these things anyway. And now we're going to go ahead and hire a coordinator of CWA to alleviate some of the responsibilities that Mr. Williford had with regards to SARP, SART, attendance, and so forth, so that Mr. Williford can go ahead and spend a lot more of his time with the agreement and ensuring that we are making good progress and addressing some of those things that are in the agreement. So, and the technical assistance is also another stipulation within the agreement as well. And we are looking to have some people that have had experience in working in this area to go ahead and come and be our partner and work right alongside us to provide the support. So those are the two things that the agreement mandates for us to do, and that's our plan moving forward.
Thank you very much. Autumn Christian says, my hope out of all of this is that the children do get the help they need and everyone is doing more than their part, as Dr. Yee mentioned. Words are easy, action is needed. I couldn't agree more. Not really anything I can add to that. And certainly we can talk until we're blue in the face, but I do want to say that we are taking action, and kind of related to that same thing is Mr. Banks here saying the vague talk of vague data think projects a vague response. Maybe better to state an example of change, sample issue, sample change. Well, so first of all, as a result of this OCR report, we're actually going to be monitored very closely by the Office for Civil Rights. So there is accountability here, okay? So we're not able to just say, oh, we're gonna do X, Y, and Z and not do it, okay? That's not an option for us, okay? So, and I do wanna say that this is not something that we see as a negative for our district in the long run. I think it's a positive thing that certain issues have been pointed out that we can correct, and that we're going to have some assistance and some oversight in correcting these things. And as far as hard data, well, this report looked at 2014 through 2019. We have data after that, 1920, 2021. Of course, COVID, kids were not even in school for a certain amount of time there. So trying to compare COVID year data to that data is kind of apples and oranges. I would be very surprised, let me just put it that way, I'd be very surprised if you did not see a marked improvement in our discipline data in these coming years due to these positive changes that we're making. And I don't know if anyone else would like to add to that.
Yeah, just real quick on that, Chris. And again, one of the things we're gonna be doing too, and I appreciate the transparency request basically from our family member or our member out there, community member, and that's something we're gonna have to do. And no matter what, as part of our agreement, is we're gonna have to actually give public data as we move forward to show how these things are being made. Like you're saying, sample. I think can you put his thing back up there, please?
Yes.
Or her thing back up there. So example, like sample issues. So I can tell you one sample issue was, and Mr. Momon's aware of this. We had no discipline matrix before the 2019 or 2021-22 school year. That didn't exist, or it was outdated. Outdated with old strategies, old codes. So that was a sample issue that we knew we had to correct. So at the end of last year, we put a discipline matrix team together, looked at that matrix and how outdated it was, and the practices that were outdated in it, and the interventions that were missing in it. And then the change of that then was we created a new matrix for this school year with the most current interventions in it that are data driven, to make sure that now moving forward, now when we see our end of the year data this year, hopefully it's going to start having that decline and impacting all of our students better. So that would be kind of a small sample example, what the gentleman or a person is requesting, but they're going to see more of that too as we go through this, because we have to be transparent with our data on what it's going to be anyways moving forward. I hope that answers that gentleman or that person's question.
Okay. Thank you. Dr. Yee, did you have anything else?
Just a quick point. Again, going back to data, we've been very fortunate in the last year. Every quarter, we run our data. We run our discipline data. We run our attendance data. We run our academic data. We run local and state as well. So as an Ed Services team, that is what drives us, the data and looking at how we've improved or not improved. And I will tell you that even though the OCR report, it only highlights 18-19, and that's the data that they used. If you look at our data just last year, you'll see some marked improvements already, and some of those things, especially within discipline. So those things aren't highlighted in the report, unfortunately, but we are definitely moving in the right direction. And again, we need all of your support, and I 100% agree. We're very much result oriented, and it's really not just what we say, but it's the actions behind it that really matters to us and also to our community. So we 100% agree with that comment.
Yes, and thank you for pointing that out, Dr. Yee, that we do have a year of data post-COVID, and there is improvement, and we do want to make it clear that this is looking at 18-19. There were certain things highlighted there, practices that have been changed and improved already, but we're going to continue to do this work with the oversight from the OCR. So we've got a lot here. We've got this OCR, and then we've got the heat, which is, hey, the heat is important too, right? So we've got a couple of different things here. I'm going to try to get to both of them. Are the heat advisory posted in the front office of the school? Not that I'm aware of. I mean, it's a decent idea, I suppose. But keep an eye on your weather app on your phone. Usually it'll tell you if there's any kind of heat advisory. Obviously, in this kind of heat, make sure you're hydrated. Avoid excessive activity, particularly outdoors. Just trying to go to these in order. Really hoping that mindsets change through training, and that African-American students are getting treated and educated in a fair and just manner going forward. Absolutely agree, Yvette. Okay, and I'm sorry, go ahead.
I love the idea of the mindset, because one of the things that we started doing last year also is provide outward mindset training through the Arbinger Institute for half of our managers. So far, half of them went last year and got trained. This year, our goal is to do the other half. So because it does start with our mindset. So that is also something that we've started last year. It's very important to us that when we touch kids in their lives, that we come from it from a very open, very positive, very outward mindset. So I'm just happy that I mentioned that, because we didn't share about the outward mindset training in our district. That is something we started last year as well. So we're very proud of that.
Okay, these issues should have never happened. I can't argue with you there. Again, like I said, these are societal issues, but we're not deflecting the blame off of us. Yes, these things should never have happened. Okay. Hi, with this heat, kids are doing PE. This is putting them in risk of body overheat. Instead of be running outside, why the teacher don't keep them at least in the gym and other activities. And then right after that, Jasmine says the gym at the school is being remodeled, but no other alternatives have been offered. I guess I would say to this individual, if you're having specific issues and you have already contacted the school site and it hasn't been resolved, you can contact us and we will try to help you. But your first point of contact should be your school administration. So, and if you haven't contacted them already about that, please do. And if you don't feel that's been resolved, then you can take it to us. But please don't sidestep your principal. Your principal wants to help you. So please let them know first. Okay. And okay, I think to help with attendance, the district should offer courses in high flex mode where students can choose to attend class in person or they can stay home watching live lectures. Just my 2 cents. I think that's cool. It's not something we currently are able to offer, and I think there might be some challenges in offering something like that. This being a kind of educational services thing, Dr. Yee, would you like to say anything about that?
So the parent was asking about offering something
Basically, so like they can go
like
to
a
class,
blended.
or they can get blended, or they can stay home and watch the lecture.
One of the things that we're proud to have actually is a virtual academy. So within our virtual academy, it gives students the opportunity to actually attend school from home. So like a brick and mortar, but just virtual. So we do have that option. Unfortunately, in our non-virtual academy where students are there physically, of course, that's our traditional model, but there is a virtual academy, and actually we don't have a waiting list. So if your child is interested in having, if that is a better fit for them, then more than happy to have that conversation. The principal of the virtual academy is Mr. Kevin Lloyd.
Okay. And Cal Poly did that, improved attendance and a lot of other issues. You mean they're talking about a university, right? So that's a different thing. So unless they're talking about Poly High School, which I don't think they are, but they're probably talking about a university. So kind of apples and oranges there. But Philip Banks, we just enrolled our child this year and are very impressed with what's seen as far this year. Well, thank you very much, Philip. Okay. Taught a high flex course at CPP. Oh, right. Oh, Dr. Hasso, I'm sorry. I didn't recognize Mar H. I got you. Okay. Hello, Dr. Hasso. Okay. Okay. Yvette Harris has another comment here. With the discrimination and discipline, are you also reviewing the overrepresentation of African American students in special education? What is being implemented for efficacy along with achievement? I see Dr. Yee nodding her head there, so maybe she would like to respond to that.
When we do look at our data, we also understand that our special education students is also a focus for us. We are currently working on what we're calling a SACE plan because we are significantly disproportionate when it comes to our special education and our African American students represented in some of the programs in our special education area. So that definitely is a focus for us. And currently we are developing a plan with stakeholder groups and so forth, and to really address those concerns. And one of the things that we are also starting to do this year, and I don't know if you can see this, is actually a guide for instructional direction for our students. And inside this guide for instructional direction, which we are rolling it out this year at all sites, I just finished what I'm calling my little roadshow at Victor Valley High School last week. But it really goes into the idea that all of our students learn differently. And especially with special education students, we need to be able to meet them where they're at. And we need to be able to have strategies and tools within our tool belt to give them some choice, some voice in the process at a pace that works well for them, and give them a lot of opportunity. So what we call the universal design for learning for all students, particularly our special ed students, is something that we will be training teachers on and really providing that support for all of our students, but again, particularly for our special education students. So thank you for asking that question.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Yee. And it is 5 o'clock. We do have one more of a comment than a question. Autumn Christian, just enrolled my child in VVVA, that's Victor Valley Virtual Academy, it's amazing, and the teachers are very involved. I feel my child is more engaged now. Well, that is awesome, Autumn. Thank you very much. And yeah, as Dr. Yee mentioned, this is like a real school. So this is not like kind of a glorified independent study, if you will. These students are attending classes virtually throughout the day. They have 7 periods with passing periods and a lunch. So it's just like they're going to school at home. And so we're really trying to expand that program. And as Dr. Yee mentioned, we have plenty of spots. So you can go to vvuhsd.org/enroll. Let me find that. And you can start the enrollment process for the virtual academy or any of our schools for that matter. Okay, so
Can I cover that real quick, Chris?
yes, go ahead.
Also, too, real quick, if you're already a current student, if your child's already a current student, actually, though, in our district, actually, they don't need to go to the VVA enroll component. They can actually go to directly to the Central Enrollment Center. They'll direct you to the virtual academy to get on the approval list. And then you just go right back to Central Enrollment and have the transfer put in place. So again, if you're already a student in our district, your student's already in our district, you don't need to go to the enroll component on the website. You can actually just come into Central Enrollment. They'll be directed to the virtual academy, be accepted, and then we can get you right in right away.
Okay, before we say goodnight, I'd like to give Mr. Momon, Mr. Coles an opportunity to speak a little bit. And thank you, Dr. Hasso, for joining us. And you guys can flip a coin to see who goes first, but I know there was a lot covered today, and you guys might have a few things to say, so I just want to give you that opportunity.
Well, first of all, I want to commend Dr. Yee and Mr. Williford responding to the questions related to OCR. The other thing that I like to recommend parents to do as an alternative is to get involved in our board meetings. Have a voice in what's going on in their kids' education and within the community. Also, I'm going to commend those parents who asked a tough question, because that's the only way that we're going to improve as a district to address our needs and our shortcomings actually that we have within this district. Again, we're not trying to avoid anything. We need to take things head on. We need to correct them. And we also need to hold people accountable if we're going to make a change in this district.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think if this doesn't raise the hairs on the back of our neck with respect to what happened and how do we never let it happen again, that has to be the goal. It's got to be about equity with a focus on results. It cannot be problem admiration. It has to be about action. And I look forward to taking this head on. And we also look forward to sharing the data in the months and the years to come about the marked improvement. And when we don't find the results that we're hoping to get in particular areas, we have to continue to have a focus on results and course correct quickly and never let a repeat happen of 1819.
All right, thank you very much. And
yes, Chris, can I say one more thing?
Yes, please.
Okay. Just letting the audience, parents, and our community know that the town hall meeting is exactly to bring information to the community. I don't know if we've done this in the past or not, but we want to be as transparent as possible. We want parents' comments, we want their views, but the idea of the town hall is to bring as much information to our community.
Right. And, and it was mentioned before, but there is a component of public reporting to this OCR agreement. So we will have to report this data on a regular basis. And again, we don't view it as a negative thing. And as Dr. Momon said, it's not something we're running away from. This is an opportunity to make positive changes. And we hope that, we can be a leader in making some of these changes. And I'm sure that Mr. Momon, Mr. Coles, and everyone on the screen shares that opinion. So let's just go around the table now. So go Bearcats. Who are the Bearcats, Mr. Coles?
That happened to be one of our high school's mascots.
Oh, okay.
If you ever see a Bearcat, you have to let me know, because I worked there for 15 years and I never saw a Bearcat.
Okay. Yeah, well, we do have hawks. Speaking of Silverado, we have hawks. We have a red-tailed hawk that perches right out there. And we have plenty of jackrabbits. I don't know about saints, but you know. So Autumn Christian says, thank you all. Also welcome Mr. Coles. Got a laugh from Dr. Hasso there. Okay, Dr. Yee, anything you'd like to say?
Just again, thank you for joining us and appreciation for you being here. We are all in this together. So thank you so much for you to continue to support us, to support each other, to do what's best for our students.
Mr. Williford.
Again, just thank you for being here this evening and asking those tough questions. Those are the questions we need to be asking as a district and community if we're going to get to where we want to go. So I just appreciate everyone's time and being here this evening, and I hope everybody has a great rest of their week.
Well, once again, we did not have any preguntas en español, as it were. But we would like to say muchísimas gracias to Jonas and Mari, and anything you'd like to say to the folks out there?
I was thinking maybe we should do something in Spanish so we can have Spanish questions.
Yeah. Well, you know, speaking of that, you know, some of this material, I'm making some extra work for you guys, but some of this material, when we get it on the website, we will need to translate it. So just so you know.
See, the thing is that if we have the whole conference in English and people who speak Spanish, they won't understand anyway to ask the question.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
And speaking of that, so, and Jonas has helped us out in the past, Jonas, I should say, but I call him Jonas sometimes. He doesn't.
No worries, man.
He doesn't get mad at me. But we have done these things completely in Spanish, and I think that that's something we should do again in the near future. So we will try to do that very soon, and we'll have Jonas and or Mari help us with that. Mari, anything you'd like to say before we go?
Just a big thank you to all of our families for joining us tonight. And please get involved in your child's education. Thank you.
Okay. Well, I think we covered it, and you know, we appreciate all these questions, and we will continue to answer these questions. You know, if you have these tough questions, we will not shy away from them. We want to connect with you, and we want to have real substantive discussions about these things. So again, thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night.